Good morning. Today we're going to be taking a look at how we can use databases, specifically Oracle, to extract information about date and time. So what is time? When we're talking about time, it's not just the idea of this cute little thing of a TARDIS coming in, sliding, making some sounds for us. But in computer science, we really have a big issue with dealing with the idea of storing dates and time information all of the time. It's kind of a big deal for us as human beings. It's also a recurring problem because we often have different ways of addressing how we store or work with dates and times in a visual and storage formats, like the way we see a time and the way we display it on the screen and the way we actually store it inside the machine itself as a data type. And so by the fact we have so many different ways of handling that, we have to make sure we address it appropriately inside our database structure. On top of that, every single database system has its own way of dealing with time too. I know, so extra work we have to keep up in our head when we're working on these basic concepts. So just as FYI, Bad Wolf is great, but we don't have to use that as our main source of working with things. Now, when we're talking about this, we're using the Oracle database system specifically. So I'm looking at the three major data types in Oracle that deal with date and time. And we have the date type, which is the big overarching one. We have timestamp, which has some specific information. And we also have interval, which is a great ranged value. And we'll look at those as we go along through this. Now, when we're working with dates, we have to actually keep in mind that we're going to be getting a lot of information out of that. So most of the time we're going to be using functions to make that happen. We don't usually just want the raw date value, because when we're looking at the raw date value, all we get is just a little bit of simple information. And so we don't want to just get the simple information or all the behind the scenes data which is hidden from us. We need to get specific data out of that. And so there's two major ways of working with that. We have the toChar and toDate functions. toChar returns a text value of the type varchar2, and then toDate remarkably returns a date value. I know, it's weird. Both these methods take two parameters as default, and so the first parameter of toChar is the date value, and the second parameter is the format mask we work with. On toDate, we take a string parameter that's the what we're going to convert into a date, and the second parameter is a format mask we'll apply to that string to create the date. And we'll take a look at format masks and how those work here in just a sec. So when we have the date type, we have the main way of actually storing information that uses whole values to talk about things like the year, quarter, the month, the week, the day, the hour, minute, second. There's a couple others, but these are the major components of date. And all of this information is stored inside every single date object, even if you don't know about it. So that information is stored in every single date. And the way we extract it is by using the information inside the date itself, combined with either the toChar or toDate format and format masks. So what is a format mask? Well, it's not a K95. It's not Majora's Mask. It's also not Loki Mask from The Mask. I know, crazy. What a format mask is instead, it's a way of actually displaying information using some shorthand so we can actually address what we're talking about. Now, keep in mind that all format masks are actually case sensitive. So if you're looking for something to display with all caps or with mixed case, you want to keep that in mind as you actually use the format mask for it. And the codes may not be what you think they are. There's a couple of them specifically that you think it's going to be one thing, but it's actually another. And there's a lot of confusion that happens, especially on test questions. So just FYI, that's one to definitely watch out for. And one of the most amazing / annoying features of format masks is you can rearrange them and combine them to your heart's content, which can make some really odd and or poorly structured date information. But you can also basically reflect any way of writing a date by using format masks effectively. So some of the common format masks we have right here. So we have the mask column on, as well as the value column that's attached to it. So we have RR for the last two digits of the current year. And this is a special one because if you're going back in time more than say 50 years, you're going to see, oh, that's a different value. Weird. So you want to make sure you use the RR mask appropriately. We have the DD for digits, day for the month spelled out, and it's a padded value. Keep that in mind. We have the MI for minutes, 3 Ds in a row, caps for the day of the year. DD for the spelled out value of the day, and that's also padded. YYYYY for a 4-digit year, capital MON for the caps version of the 3-letter month, HH for hours, MM for the month. That's pretty different from the MI, I know. This is where the big confusion I was just talking about. DY for the abbreviated day, and then FM to suppress blank spaces on those other format masks. So that one can be combined with other format masks to get something different. Keep that in mind when doing some of your projects. Now, we can also get right now, we can talk about the current date and time. And so we access that with the sysdate command. Now, this is the current OS date and time from the server, not your local machine. This is where we see some of the biggest confusion on students. They think they're talking about right now on themselves, but they're actually talking to right now on the server. And that server's date and time has absolutely nothing guaranteed to do with your current time. It could have a different time zone it's operating in for business purposes, or for, hey, I set the system to run on Zulu time for some reason. Okay, cool, great. So the current time of this server is what this is working with. By default, when you're working with the idea of sysdate, it's going to give you the default time of DD-MON-RR, so the last 2 digits of the year, the capital X version of the month, and the 2 digits of the date. You can also, like we just talked about, use the toChar method to extract more data by using a format mask. And that's a great way we can do some cool stuff. We can also manipulate our dates by using the interval data type. So the interval data type allows us to get ranges of values. So we have two different actual ranges. We have the year to month, the big chunk, and we have the day to second, smaller chunk. And so we can use that to manipulate the different pieces of information out of a date range. So we can actually get parts of information from that. We have associated with that, we have two methods, the 2ys interval and the 2ds interval. So the 2ym interval allows you the year month, turns a date into a year month interval. So and then the 2ds interval gets two dates and turns them into a ds. Oh, days to seconds. Ah, yes. And then we can also extract individual values. So I can extract year from some interval or extract day from some interval. So I can use the extract command to get specific components out of that as well. So we also can do date math. I'm using sysdate right here, but you can even use the result of a toDate command. And so whatever you're putting in for that, so this date plus or minus a whole number will add or subtract days. Sysdate plus or minus some number divided by 24 or the equivalent fractional value will add or subtract hours. And then sysdate plus or minus some value divided by 140 will of course then add or subtract the minutes from that. And so whatever fractional value you pass that will get calculated on that. However, if you're looking to get years on that, you're going to use the add months function. What? Well, there's not an add years. It'd be great if there were. But instead, we pass it the date parameter as the first parameter, and then whatever number of years we want to work with, multiplying by 12 for the appropriate number of months. So if we're working with adding months on there, you just call add months and pass the number of months. But if you're looking for adding years, you multiply that value by 12 to get the appropriate years on that. Remember that you want to keep in mind that you're working with this and doing all the operations. Those will return a date value from each of those different operations we're doing right there. Hope this is helpful. Cheers. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.